When the children had disappeared, it had been a big story. When they returned, it became a bigger one. The 4 children had been at the library, and they simply disappeared. It was assumed that the 4 of them had been kidnapped. What else could it have been? The police had followed every lead, and the FBI had even been called in to assist, but other than knowing where the kids had last been seen, the children had vanished without a trace. Time magazine had featured a haunting photo on its cover, of 4 small bikes chained to the library's bike rack. 4 small bikes, patiently waiting. 2 boys' bikes, 2 girls. The bikes had fallen over and were leaning against each other. A wicker basket, attached to the handlebars of one of them, had been slightly crushed by the weight of the others. The town was crushed too. It does something to a community. To have something so strange and inexplicable take place. To lose something so fundamental. To know that there was someone responsible. People look at each other differently. They look at their children differently. Over the following years, the library installed security cameras, and a sculpture was installed in front of the library where the bike rack had been. A stylized bronzed cast of 4 children holding hands, standing in a circle. An unacknowledged truth was that the small figures in their circle were slightly unsettling. 4 frozen children standing together, as if waiting for something to happen, as if waiting for something to change. Another thing that was unsettling was the security cameras installed, both inside and outside of the library. They had been consciously designed to be conspicuous, and to be seen, and they crouched atop the parking lot lights, and in the upper corners of all the library's interior rooms. Against the white ceiling, they looked like black boxy little gargoyles, glaring with a single black and glassy eye, always watching, always recording. Waiting for something to happen. This time, the adults were prepared. This time, things would be different. Things got really different. The security footage captured it all, sending a live feed directly to the police station. At 6 a.m., 2 hours before the library was to open, 4 figures blinked into existence in the library cafe, formerly the children's section. Tables toppled, chairs went flying, and napkins swirled around the new arrivals like startled birds on a tether. The live footage showed 4 teens, 2 males and 2 females, and they looked strange. Each wore an elaborate costume, and a few of them bore strange objects, that the police watching the video immediately identified as weapons. The police were dispatched and the quiet of the morning was ripped apart by the squeals, whoops, and screams of the sirens of police, ambulance and fire department vehicles racing to the center of town, the library, and the 4 figures whose appearance had torn the morning's calm, and the formerly sane world, asunder. The security cameras, outside of the library, captured the moments the police and firemen arrived. The vehicles of the first responders pulled into the parking lot and simply stalled out, all of them did, coasting to a stop in the parking lot entry points. Their sirens stopped too, the electronic ruckus, seemingly muffled simultaneously by an invisible pillow. Emergency responders, confused, tumbled out of their stalled and silent vehicles, talking to their headphones, walkie-talkies, and each other. The police were confused and alarmed by what was happening and guns were drawn. Inside the library, the 4 surreal figures were conversing. They seemed happy. They seemed confident. One, a male, and the largest of the 4, gestured towards the parking lot and the armed police. Pointing with the object he carried, an antique wooden harpoon shaft with a removable metal spike mounted in the end of it. He was tan, tattooed, shirtless and barefooted, and he wore a pair of baggy and shapeless pants that looked handcrafted. Coiled around his shoulder was a thin looped line, which swayed as he gestured at the commotion unfolding outside in the parking lot. The figure he was talking to was a small and stoutly built female, clothed in white flowing robes. Her curly dark hair seemed to be twisting and moving of its own volition, and she was holding on to a white glowing staff that had, what appeared to be, living snakes twined around it. Another figure, the other male, was silently looking around the cafe with his hands on his hips, seemingly amused by what was happening. He was wearing what appeared to be a black, form-fitting, one-piece bodysuit, which seemed to be crackling with electricity. The last figure, a girl with long blonde hair with leaves and twigs woven into it, and in an outfit that looked as though it was constructed entirely from plant matter, was picking up the discarded napkins and tidying up the overturned chairs and tables. Outside, the first responders on site were setting up a perimeter, and local media and curious bystanders had already gathered around the edges of it. A call had been placed to the library administrator as well. The police, uncertain of how to proceed, had settled on waiting for her to arrive to unlock the library's doors. They shouldn't have bothered. Inside the library, the four figures standing in a circle seemed to reach an agreement. They nodded silently to each other, clasped hands, and then looked up directly into the security cameras and smiled widely, with faces that would, to their parents, and the public who remembered the faces of the missing children, seem achingly and beautifully familiar. The security cameras then cut out. A local television station captured footage of what happened next. The four teens strolled out of the library's front entrance to greet the gathering crowd. They paused next to the bronzed memorial and presented a strange contrast. Four teens, wildly diverse, standing beside the sad memorial of the small, colorless, and frozen figures. The young man in the black jumpsuit was in front, and with a gesture of his hands he made the police officers' weapons disappear. Behind him, the girl with the leaves and twigs in her hair pointed at the ground at the police officers' feet, and the grass beneath them sprouted up, entwining around their ankles, bringing them to a sudden halt. These things were shocking and strange, but it was the other two figures that captured everyone's attention. The woman in the white robe rose into the air, smiled sweetly at the crowd's gasp of astonishment, looked towards the local hospital, which was across the street, and then flew towards it. Eyes tracked the arch of her progress, and saw her small form land at the entrance, open the doors with a gesture, and then simply walk in. The girl in the green was the next one to go. She raised her hands in the air as gracefully as a ballerina, and summoned a mass of grass clippings, free-floating leaves, flower petals, and pollen to her. Then, encased in this green swirling storm, she rose up, arching into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. Now only two remained. The tattooed young man, who was threading the tip of his cord into the metal spike of his harpoon, and the youth in the bodysuit who approached the reporter with a smile. The reporter, a recent graduate from a local community college, in numb disbelief, somehow asked the only questions that mattered. "Who are you? Why are you here? What do you want?" The young man in the black bodysuit smiled, and this is what he said. 10 years ago my friends and I came to this library and went on an adventure. For the last decade we've traversed humanity's imaginary worlds. They are beautiful, welcoming, and nearly infinite. But, now they are threatened by a darkness that is growing in yours. That's why we've returned to this world. We are here to help. Our friend in the white robe is going to show you how to take care of your sick and ailing. Sickness is a part of life, but the debt and insecurity your society creates around it kills hope, kills ambition, and kills dreams. My friend in the green is going to show you how to heal your world. Its beauty and diversity has inspired the creation of so many others. We can't allow you to continue to destroy it. I'm going to disarm you all. Weapons are for defense, but you've filled your world with them? Dreamers, with worlds inside of them, are dying in your schools, malls, and your homes. This will stop. I will stop it. Then, the young man smiled at the reporter, flipped off a casual salute, and then rose into the air. As he rose up, from around the town small, deadly black shapes rose into the air as well, guns forming a black cloud, swarming like insects, collecting into a spinning ball, which orbited in the sky above the heads of the staring crowd. Then it compacted, with a crunching sound that echoed across the horizon, compacting smaller and smaller. What fell to earth, to land at the bronzed feet of the memorial to the lost children, was smaller, and less deadly than a single bullet. The shocked and dazed reporter turned then, to the remaining teen and asked, "What about you? What are you here to do?" The young man stood there, smiling in the sun, his face and upper body checkered with primitive tattoos, drawings of waves, whales, and scenes from life on a Nantucket whaler. This is what he said. "Call me Ishmael. I'm heading to Washington, D.C. There's a white whale there, and I'm going to stick this harpoon so far up his ass that it'll dislodge his comb over." And then the remaining team, with the harpoon in his hand, rose effortlessly up into the air and disappeared into the vast blue ocean of the sky.